What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Carrot Poker Podcast station. Welcome if you're on iTunes. Welcome if you're watching on YouTube. I've got with me another one of my students, one of my long-term students today. Karl is with me in the Carrot Poker studio. Do you want to say hello?
Hey, guys.
I've been teaching Karl for a long time. I would say like a year and a half. We've done like multiple videos together on training sites, so he shouldn't be like nervous about being on air, right? You're like a veteran of this kind of thing now.
I'm well used to it now.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, and then suddenly you'll just start like stuttering and everything. That will be good. What are we going to do today, Karl? Should we talk about some pitfalls, right?
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to talk about what happens when people don't know how to learn poker, and basically they just go about it in the wrong way, and what can basically go wrong. And Karl, when did you start playing poker?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I kind of dabbled in it when I was younger, but I guess I started playing seriously about 2 years ago.
And how smooth was your transition into poker? Did you find like, oh, this is a really obvious game to improve at? There are very clear routes to getting better, or were you kind of lost?
I was pretty lost to start with, to be honest. But then I like didn't know what I didn't know back then as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of. It's not clear, is it? It's not like when you're learning how to bake or something, you'll get like a course and that's a really weird example. But yeah, like if you're going to learn how to bake, I'm sure there are like clear steps that you can take and you can get better and you learn like the main principles of baking or whatever. That just doesn't really exist with poker. That's a problem, right? It's just no clear route. So what?
Yeah, the only like concrete thing I could latch onto back then was opening ranges. I remember like actually printing out like opening charts and sticking to them religiously and stuff.
Yeah. And there are some concrete things in poker, but then like it's only going to take you so far. You can learn how to play with a grid of hands pre-flop, but you're not going to be able to expand that grid out to the massive trees of post-flop decision-making, are you? So there comes a point when you kind of need to find some structure. So let's talk about, you've written down 5 pitfalls that you've experienced and that you believe the common grinder experiences, because that's what this station is all about. We're trying to put you, trying to get like in the shoes of the common grinder and find out what actually goes wrong for everyday man trying to learn poker, or woman. So you've got 5 pitfalls that you think everyone experiences with your own kind of stories about how they troubled you. What's your first one?
Okay, so my first one was not really being kind of disciplined enough with my off-table work. And I don't just mean kind of not doing any, although I guess to start with I probably didn't do anywhere near enough. But I also mean kind of like having lots of time and energy for it, but not having any structure. So just kind of like going off in random directions with my off-table study.
Cool. So like a complete lack of structure with how you go about improving away from the tables, like not just grinding, but like reviewing, whether you watch videos, listen to podcasts, like doing your own study. So like, first of all, before we organize it and you tell everyone sort of how you experienced this, what were you doing wrong? What was your initial kind of approach and why didn't it work?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I never really thought about a structure. I never thought like what I'm doing is wrong because it's not structured. It's not kind of aimed at any particular goals. I just thought because I'm putting in time off the table, I must be doing okay. So just kind of like randomly watching like a video here or reading like an interesting book there seemed like the right thing to be doing, and it was only a little bit later when I started saying, well, look, like, what am I actually trying to achieve here? And is what I'm doing going to help me achieve that?
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
So it's like passive learning, isn't it? Like a lot of people start off that way. They think, okay, I've subscribed to this site. It's going to like pay its weight. It's going to be worth its weight in gold kind of thing. I've signed up to a site that has thousands of videos. Surely I'm going to get better just by clicking the play button and watching the screen and just absorbing all the material. So what's the problem with this passive kind of approach? How did you find that to not be useful?
I mean, I guess it's just kind of like, I guess people learn in lots of different ways, don't they? I mean, generally applying stuff is a good way of actually like cementing it in your head. If you're just kind of really passively like learning stuff, then it's kind of dangerous because it seems like you are learning. You're like, oh yeah, I remember everything that was said in that video. But like just listening to it and understanding what was said isn't quite the same as actually applying it in games. So.
Totally, it's like when you're in university or whatnot. Like I studied philosophy, that's what my degree is in, and that can get quite like logically complex, just like poker. So the two are kind of analogous. And I remember like being in a lecture or whatever and being like, oh yeah, I totally understand like that ontological argument for the existence or non-existence of God or whatever it was. And then like a week later, I'd understood it at the time, but I couldn't formulate it in my own words. And the analogy here is like being able to understand why an instructor did something in the moment in game, then not actually being able to like have the same thought process yourself, not being able to produce. So learning is not all about the receptive part, it's about the productive part as well. That's why like when you teach English, for example, it's always like you do like receptive things like reading and listening, but if you're not like writing and speaking, then you don't really get your head around the language. And the same is so true of poker. Like if you're just listening and watching and you're not actually like analyzing your own hands, like giving your own feedback on your play, helping other people, like if you're not doing those kind of things, then totally you're not going to really get anywhere fast. You're not going to cement it. That's the key thing there, the cementing of the material. So what did you do to add structure to your off-the-table work then?
So one of the first things I did was I just, stopped and said, like, what are my actual goals here? Like, what do I want to happen? It's kind of got a simple answer, but it's not the same answer for everyone. So, I mean, some people might just be kind of happy to, like, pick up a bit of poker knowledge and sort of grind out, kind of a reasonable win rate at a low stake, and they're happy with that. But the answer for me was I want to get as good as I possibly can at poker. I want to move up stakes. I want to be playing, 100 or 200s in a couple of years' time, hopefully. That sort of thing. So that really made me focus on, right, well, if that's what I want, then, I'm going to have to sort of drill down into what do I actually need to achieve in order to do that, and what learning am I going to need to do in order to make that happen.
Okay, so say I'm you, and I like get out of bed and it's a non-playing day for me, or the morning is not my playing time, it's my study time. How is it broken up? Just give us an example of what you would do in that situation now that you've added this structure. What's your timetable like?
Okay, so I mainly do kind of my study after a session. So first thing I do is go through all of the hands that I've marked for review during a session, and then I just have kind of specific times of the month where I go through a particular routine. So, for example, right now we're right at the end of the month. And for me, that means going through this kind of 10 steps review. Actually, there's more like 8. But yeah, so what I do is I go through particular filters. So I go through all the hands that I played that month, and I apply a filter in my tracking software. And it's things like, step 1, find all of the pots where I contributed more than 75 big blinds and I won that pot. And just pick out sort of 4 or 5 hands and go, okay, what do I think of my play here? Just because this is a pot that I won in doesn't mean it's a pot that I should ignore. Maybe I could have won more, or maybe I just happened to win that, but I still played it really, really badly.
Definitely, I think that's an important point, and it touches on like results orientation, where people obsess madly about the hands that they lost, even if they're coolers, and like they want, feedback or to be told how they can avoid like getting stacked with bottom set against middle set on the dry board or something like that, when they're not actually looking at all these little pots that they just might have picked up, or even bigger pots that they picked up, where they've made huge mistakes, but they've not realized that because, at the time they won money, so it seemed emotionally like all was well. So that's a good point. You need to be objective about your review for sure. That's definitely going to add structure to your game if you're not just biased to looking at the losing pots. That'll add a lot of structure to your review. So that's like hand history review, that like database review. That's good for sort of picking apart the holes in your own game, and that's something I do with like all of my students. This filtering idea within the tracking software, that's totally core. But I see this as like a 2-part thing, this learning off the game learning model. Like it's like inchworm, right? Which is the idea that your game is like is represented by a worm, and at the front end of the worm it's like inching forward, and that's like learning new material, and at the back end you're patching up the things that you're actually doing wrong, the weakest areas of your game. So the idea is that you don't want to learn loads and loads of new stuff, because if you do that, the worm just stretches forward, but the back of it stays exactly where it was, and in some cases even like gets worse, and it just creates disarray and there's holes everywhere and stuff. So what you just described there, I think, would be patching up the back of the worm, right? Seeing how you did that month, having a look, are there any things that are jumping out at you, common spots where you're misplaying them? What would you do to actually incorporate new material and say add say someone was new to poker and they just moved up to a level where people were sort of 3-betting much more and they wanted to incorporate like a 4-bet bluff range, for example, how would you go about learning new material?
So I guess it depends how familiar you think you are with, with a specific topic. So if you take something like, like 3-betting, you're getting like 3-bet a lot and you're trying to work out how you want to defend. Mm-hmm. If you know absolutely nothing about that to start with, mm-hmm. then, I would then start consulting, consulting books, consulting good video sites, try and find like one person whose videos like really speak to you. But that's if you know kind of nothing about it. Once you've kind of ingested a lot of that material and you feel like you kind of understand the principles, mm-hmm. it's then I think about starting to apply it. And for that kind of topic, I guess I would apply it by coming up with default ranges.
Cool. So you need to get the info first. You need to go out and actually fetch and gather that info. And then when you've got enough of it, it's the kind of step 2, which is organizing it within your own head by doing things like creating ranges or writing down what your strategies are or reviewing hands or whatever, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So that's good. So that's the kind of front end of the worm, like edging forward, incorporating new things as you'll need to do as you move up. And as you grow as a player, when you first start, you might not be 3-betting very much at all because you're just taught to play like ABC and you're getting a foothold on like how to value bet and how to fold like in the face of aggression from passive players and all these kind of like bread and butter essentials. But then you need to like develop light 3-bet ranges. That could be something you do. Then you need to go out, gather the info and then sort of organize it in your own head and make sure that you understand it and that you can produce it, not just that you remember hearing it and it resonated with you at the time. So for people choosing where to get that info, I just want to come back to a point there. I want to touch on that a bit more. You said find an instructor who sort of resonates with you. What do you mean by that? Do you mean like someone who they can listen to, they find entertaining, or someone who they just think the material is really solid, or everything? How would you judge a coach?
I kind of a bit of both, I guess. Like you're not going to want to listen or watch videos if you're like not at all entertained by the person who's speaking.
Right.
I'm sad to say I've had that problem before where there's material that I've kind of wanted to learn, but I just can't get through it because I don't enjoy the presenter.
Yeah, it's so much in the delivery as well, isn't it? I mean, you need to feel engaged. You need to feel like, okay, that I can actually tolerate this, because it's like using the analogy of chess. Like if there's a really badly written chess book where it's just like variation after variation that you're forced to like plug your way through, you're not going to want to study it. And the same is true in poker. If it's just like someone going on and on and droning, then yeah, okay, it's probably not going to be the best way to learn. Like, yeah, so look around, I guess, do your research, find someone that you can listen to, and sort of, if they're solid, then it can help to have like just 1 or 2 people that you really listen to, I guess, as well, rather than like everybody, because it's very easy to get confused, isn't it, as well, in the early stages of your poker learning, right?
I think so, yeah. You can follow like one person who's covering lots of different topics. I guess the other thing is like trying to make sure that they're good. Basically, you don't want to take in too much material from someone who just isn't good at poker, and unfortunately, there is that around as well.
Definitely. So you need to ask for feedback. There's forums out there like, what do you think of this player? Get involved with your fellow learners in your community, and never just take an instructor's word as gospel because they are an instructor when you're gathering that new material. So that's good. I like the way we broke that up into like the 2 parts of the worm, the fixing your leaks and the learning new stuff. Then we broke up the new stuff into gather it, find a reliable source to gather it, and then make sure you actually organize it. So really clear kind of model for people to follow, I think, so they hopefully get less lost in their poker learning. Let's move on to the mental game now, which is your second pitfall. How did you used to go wrong with the mental game? Like, what were you doing that wasn't working with that?
Well, I mean, I didn't give it enough respect for a start. I mean, to start with, it wasn't on my radar at all. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was all just, how can I improve my technical game? And then as I became more aware of it as a discipline, I just started thinking to myself, well, this is just about, just self-control, just get on with it, basically. Keep your emotions in check and suck it up. But I think I started like giving it more respect as like an actual skill and something that you can work on, and something that is incredibly difficult, really, really hard.
Yeah, so this is the first part, like acceptance, like accepting that the mental game of poker is not supposed to be easy for us because we are not conditioned to live in the world of poker, are we? Like we don't walk down the street every day and be like, yeah, there's probably a 34% chance that someone's going to shoot me right now, but you know, it's still probably profitable because there's like endless gold at the end of this road. This is not something we're used to, right? That's like a extreme analogy, but you get the point. In poker, where all that matters is winning money in the long run, you know, when you lose money, it does feel like you're getting shot in poker terms. So us not being able to deal with that in the short term and us having irrational thoughts and fluctuations in our ability to remain logical, that's normal. And I guess the first step is acceptance. Like, okay, I have a problem. But everyone has a problem, and humans have a problem playing poker, not just me. So, you know, that's the first step, and then when you've accepted it, I guess you can start to do something about it. I remember you having, like, a bunch of success, and then one night, I remember, like, you just saying to me in the morning, Coach, things have gone terribly, terribly wrong. It was, like, the catastrophic night. What went on there, and how would that be a warning to others?
Yeah, that was not a good night. I guess like basically just revenge tilt took over in a bad way that night, and also kind of a lot of accumulated like frustration with, you know, the way my game had been going over the past like month or so before.
Okay, so that's two types of tilt we've just identified that caused you to sort of play really badly for the whole night. How many buy-ins at your game did you lose in that one night just due to tilt that you wouldn't have normally, just to give the listeners a picture of how extreme it was?
Oh, I mean, it was crazy. I don't know what proportion was like, you know, was tilt and what proportion was like run bad.
What kind of downswing are we talking about, magnitude?
It was 40 buy-ins. Yeah.
40 buy-ins, right? 4-0. And normally in one night, like 8 buy-ins would be a disastrous night. That'd be a terrible night. So 40 buy-in downswing, I mean, clearly that's either like, I'm sure you ran terribly that night, like you must have done, but clearly the mental game has interfered there in a big, big way. And that's very severe, right? And people should take the mental game seriously, because if they lose 40 buy-ins in one night that they shouldn't, let's say 30 of those shouldn't have been lost, right? Let's say you had a natural 10 buy-in downswing, and then 30 of them were a result of decisions you would never normally have made when you weren't in this extremely tilty state, right? So given the downswing is that severe, it really shows how much it impedes progress, because if you're a reasonable winner, and in poker we say BB per 100, meaning how many big blinds you would win per 100 hands, and if you have a moderate win rate of like 4 big blinds per 100, you know, and then you, like, how many hands would you play in a night? Like 1,000, a couple of thousand?
Yeah, 2K, something like that.
2K, so I mean, there you're talking like, you're not winning very much at all overall in that night. Then if you lose 40, that's enormous. So you could grind for like a month or 2 months or something like that, and, you know, playing 20,000 hands a month with that win rate, and you're not expected to win 40 buy-ins in that sample. So you've just undone like 2 months work or 3 months work or something like that in one single night. That's how severe it is. So you mentioned 2 types of tilt there, revenge tilt and accumulated tilt. I want to talk a bit about what those are. So just to clarify them for people, and then how you can actually work on them.
Yeah, sure. So I guess like if your results aren't great over a period of time, then you can end sessions, you know, go about your normal life, and then come back to poker again, and it's still affecting you. You know, you sit down at the table, and I guess it's when you're thinking like, well, how much am I going to lose this session?
Yeah. So this is accumulated tilt.
Yeah, all that sort of thing. Like, and anything that means that you're not starting a session fresh, if there's some kind of mental hang up from, you know, last session, it's usually last session, or, you know, several sessions before if it's been going really horribly for you. Yeah,
like I just had 3 losing sessions, hypothetically, last week, say, and then I play my next one, then I get stacked in like the 4th hand I play, and I just automatically think, oh, here it goes again. Of course, the inevitable ball of downswing is just continuing to roll downhill, and I'm getting crushed. And this is going to happen, because that's what has been happening, and the brain kind of learns in a patterned way. So if it's been losing, it kind of expects to lose, and it already goes into the session with a kind of fog of pessimism. So what would you do? What have you been doing more recently to kind of reset to stop accumulated tilt? Do we take breaks? Is that a good idea to take like extended breaks maybe?
I mean, you can if you had a night like I did, the dreaded night of tilt. Then yeah, I mean, I think definitely take like good 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, maybe even longer, and just kind of get your head back in the right place again. Because you might think as well, and I've got a habit of doing this, that no, I'm fine, I've got it under control. I'll go back down to the tables. I'll just make a special effort. But sometimes it doesn't matter. Like there's no willpower, there's no force of will that you can do that will make any difference once like your tilt has reached that stage.
Because the tilt is in the subconscious as well, right? Sorry to cut you off there. The tilt is kind of like buried in the subconscious of your mind. It's not like you're sitting there thinking, I think it would be a good idea if I started off extremely pessimistic and then got progressively more angry as things went slightly wrong and then played badly. You're not thinking that. It's deep within the subconscious. The emotions are surging forward. So no matter how logical and determined you are in your conscious mind, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. You cannot beat subconscious problems just by consciously going, I am definitely going to do this. Right? It just doesn't work. You might give yourself a little bit more motivation and energy at first and a bit more determination to control it for a while. But if it's built up to that extent that, you might be experiencing after extended run bad, you're powerless. So you need to say, okay, that's where acceptance comes in again. I have a problem. And yeah, like you say, like you might want to take if it's really bad, reset. And one thing I actually heard another instructor say at some point when I watched the video a while ago was, if you're feeling like you can't win, like you're just on a really bad downswing or whatever, go and do something that you're good at. Like if you're really good at like playing Call of Duty online, then go and shoot people in the face until you feel like a boss. Or like if you're really, really good at chess, go and play some chess online and crush people. Or if you're just good at like sewing, maybe make like a nice scarf that no one else could make and like wear it and look in the mirror. I don't know. There's a lot of different things that you can do. That everyone's good at something, right? And there's a lot of things in life that everyone feels happy by doing. So go do some of those and reset and just get the negative energy away, the subconscious negative energy. Forget poker, leave it for a few days. You need to break an extended tilt. So yeah, that would be the main way of breaking it. And then I guess you can make your break smaller and smaller and you can sort of get used to just resetting and get into good habits. And then as you get better and better at the mental game, your breaks can be less amounts of time and you can still reset as effectively. It's like, building up a skill, building up your mental game work. You mentioned revenge tilt as well. That's kind of implicit what it means from the name, but talk us through how you were feeling, like when you were on that night of tilt and the revenge tilt was there.
So that was one of probably the most frightening things about that night, because I don't usually tilt in that way. So it was basically kind of like an eruption of all the accumulated tilt towards the kind of end of that session, and unfortunately not for a short period of time, but it was a long session. So like maybe the last 45 minutes or something like that. Literally like any hint of aggression, especially from a reg, I get check raise, I get my C-bet raise, like whatever, any kind of aggression like that, and I just shove over it. It didn't matter what I had. It's like I was literally like shoving left, right, and centre.
And to paint a picture for the listeners, you're not a bad poker player. You're someone who's taken the game very seriously for a long time, and even at that time, you were way more competent than that, and you knew for a fact consciously that that was just not even an option. It's not something you'd even considered in your right mind. So it just shows that even if you're a good technical poker player and your game's reached a certain level of solidness, you can still fall to absolute pieces if tilt builds up to a large enough extent.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was a really it was a really bad night, but and that was probably responsible for quite a lot of the losses that I made that night, because I don't know, I did get some falls, but like frequently I was just pulled.
It's like the red line's like gradually crawling upwards and the blue line's just like falling at a straight angle downwards, so it's not really helping. Okay, so what would you say to someone? This is a common kind of tilt. I think I've had a lot of students that have this kind of vendetta, revenge tilt, where it's just like, how dare you play back at me, I'm going to show you who the alpha is, this kind of tilt. What would you say to someone that frequently suffers from that?
Well, I'd say like maybe like contrary to what you might expect, you don't. you don't have to give up that energy and that kind of competitiveness, or even your anger. You should try not to get angry, but like you can actually use that emotion. But what you really need to realize is the way that you're expressing that emotion is not the right way to punish bad play, if you like. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to really get back at someone, then play really, really well. And there are ways of doing that. And take some satisfaction in that. Take satisfaction when you come up with a really, really good strategy and it wins you loads of money and it specifically exploits one of their mistakes. I don't know, just use your anger in a positive way. Don't just shut because it's just silly. It doesn't work.
For sure, like fighting fire with fire just doesn't work. It's like a well-known thing in life, and in poker it's completely true. If there's someone against whom you don't have any fold equity because he's basically just like crazy and out of line and sitting on your left and just bullying every single pot and just refusing to fold, the worst thing in the world that you can possibly do is just start going crazy with like your whole range with all your air and stuff, because you're just basically fueling that play. You're actually justifying his play of never folding as good, because you're then like re-bluffing and then putting all this money into the pot and then you have to fold. I mean, this doesn't make sense. So you want to fight fire with sense, basically. That's the best way to go about it. Formulate a strategy that is, you know, not completely out off the rails, but one that exploits the fact that your opponent is being really aggressive. For instance, tighten your opening range so that you can defend more of it to 3-bets, open smaller so that if you do have to fold to a 3-bet, you're not losing so much money. There are many, many ways that you can, this is just for pre-flop 3-betting, develop 4-bet bluff ranges with the most suitable hands with blockers, but not so extreme that you're like obviously 4-betting everything and going to get re-exploited. The list goes on. We said we'd stay away from technical game here, but I just want to like list a few things as examples of moderate adjustments you can make that are really, really successful that don't involve mindless aggression. I mean, it's like if you went into like a boxing match and your opponent was just like, you know, like those big haymaker punches you get on like fighting computer games where the character has to wind it up for like 20 seconds before it hits, but if it hits, it'll kill you. Like a kind of haymaker thing. If you get it's like an opponent who's just doing that over and over again, and instead of like being smart and dodging around, you're just running at him every time and punching until it hits you and getting knocked out. And it's like, come on, like actually have a think about the strategy here and, you know, use your anger to motivate you to formulate a sensible strategy instead of just like raw aggression. The fight instinct is very, very harmful in poker, as is the flight instinct. They're both pretty harmful, and you need to keep them in check. Often it's the most primal urges like fight or flight that make us do the most irrational things because they're just not logical, they're just inbuilt, for sure. So good discussion on those types of tilt. There are many others, and you know, we'll cover those in future episodes for sure. Let's go into your third pitfall, which is called unknown errors. What does this mean?
So this, it's kind of an unusual one, I guess. This is like not knowing that you're making errors. It just struck me recently that because I'm making a change in my game at the moment, how like imperceptible it is to you that you're making mistakes before, how you can like really believe that you're, you know that you make some mistakes, but like there could be like a really common mistake that you're making over and over again that you're completely oblivious to, and it's only with the right kind of support that you can work out that that's happening.
So what was your example of this then? What mistake were you making over and over again that you didn't know about?
Just not folding enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So going to showdown too much, the blue line's just taking a hit, just not folding to aggression when you should. And how did you find out that you had that error?
Well, so I started, doing some analysis on kind of blue line and red line, that sort of thing. But also, looking at my when to showdown stats, and also from kind of looking at like some of the hands that I was posting in forums and in the group that we've got, just kind of like realizing from what people were saying that like, that's like a really easy fold. I'm like, oh, what, easy? They're like, yeah, easy.
So when you're getting told something by like people you respect and you're getting told the same thing like all the time, it's maybe time to be like, maybe they're right. It's like in life, if people are saying to you, you know, you're actually really nasty, and you're like, no, I'm not, I'm a lovely person. Everyone's telling you you're nasty. You probably are a bit, probably a bit of a git, to be honest, because they're not all going to say that unless it's true. And the same goes in poker. You're not going to get told, fold more, fold more, fold more, over the long run, there'll be variants where people are right or people are wrong. But if this is happening over the long run, you've got to listen to that pattern. So that definitely helps. Another thing that definitely helps as well is actually getting a coach, someone more experienced, to look at your database and say, oh, hold on a minute, these stats are just not where they should be as well. So there's something to be said for that. But it's not like you're powerless on your own, are you? There's things you can do in your own game as well. Knowing how to use your database is definitely a good one. Using filtering, we'll do some more episodes on that in the future, making sure people know how to get the most out of their tracking software to find these unknown errors. Because when you find one, it's like hitting a gold mine, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can really start kind of tackling it and concentrating like your off-table work to try and kind of target that, and like picking out hands where you think that that's happening, and just suddenly your awareness of it shoots up, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. So do diagnostic work, hire a coach, get involved in community. Just don't isolate yourself and don't get into like the bubble of like just being this guy that plays poker and constantly makes mistakes he doesn't know about, and then like thinks he's great at poker, but he never speaks to anyone else, so he never gets feedback. That happens. Poker is not the kind of pursuit in which you want to be isolated. You need community and things like that. So yeah, definitely. Okay, let's move on to your fourth pitfall, which is zombie mode. What's zombie mode?
So this is kind of just like autopilot, it's where you run up too many tables. It's where you like play when you're not really in the right frame of mind, you're not concentrating. And yeah, you just kind of like grind it out basically. Don't think enough.
It's a natural thing, isn't it, to fall into like a zombie mode where you're just kind of, fire up a session. I need to get volume in today. And I need to play X hands this week. I need to clear my bonus. And all you're doing is like you're making yourself play when you don't actually have the energy, the mental energy to do it. And so instead of making decisions, your brain is lacking energy. What's it going to do? It's going to find a shortcut, and that shortcut is, all right, I'll learn these 50 things to be like pre-programmed in like a way that's not very good. I'll stop thinking about those 50 things. I'll just do them. That way I save like precious energy, because you're making your brain do too much, basically, by putting in too much volume. So that's zombie mode. We've all been there, I think. What can you do to reduce zombie mode?
I guess like try and play at times when you're going to be able to actually concentrate. So something I've been doing recently is just kind of coming back from work and playing poker as a way of switching off, which is, it can be quite relaxing when you've automated a lot of your decisions, but still not necessarily a good thing to be doing. So yeah, just kind of like pick your times for when to play. When you do play, like be serious about it. Don't open up like a video window and watch something at the same time, or like stick a television on or whatever. They take it seriously. If you take poker seriously, then do it.
Absolutely, you need to be serious about the game. Like my progress was really stagnant, like back in sort of 2008, 2009 when I first got into the game. And one big reason for that is I just didn't take it seriously enough, and I was in zombie mode so often. I had a flashback of me like in my old flat on my Busto laptop, like with like 4 tables of iPoker, 20 NL back in the day, with my guitar, sitting like literally playing my guitar, and every time a hand popped up I would have to use the trackpad, so I'd have to actually put the guitar down in order to actually play the hand. Then I would pick it back up again, and this happened like 11 or 12 times a minute. And it's just ridiculous. And I would also have like Facebook open, or MSN as it probably was back then, and just be like messaging people and just like reading articles at the same time. And it's like, are you such a genius that you can devote like 5% of your brain power to this insanely fiendishly complicated game and still crush? No, probably not. So take it seriously and actually give it your full brain power. The other thing you can do is play a focus session. Do you remember what those are? That's like one of my preachings.
Yeah, definitely. I've started doing that more as well. Do you want to explain it, or should I?
You explain it.
Okay, so my kind of norm is to play somewhere between 3 and 4 Zoom tables. Mm-hmm. So for me, a focus session would be 2, like literally 2, or sometimes even just 1, and just really like concentrating on every single decision. It's kind of when you're playing far less like. At a far slower rate than you're used to, you've kind of got loads of like spare brain capacity, and you can just sort of think, well, is that actually the best thing to be doing here? Are there factors that I haven't already considered? And maybe I can apply that thing that I just learned recently about 3-betting. Actually, I shouldn't do what I would have done by default here.
Right, so it actually opens your mind to finding alternatives, making sure you don't like seal off these sort of neural pathways in your brain forever. Because if you learned something a couple of weeks ago, but you've not played a focus session, you probably don't get to apply it. And then you've got this window where you've learned it, where if you apply it within that window, it's actually going to become cemented as part of your game. And if you don't apply it within that window, then it's probably just going to like flit away into like the abyss of your mind where it's never going to be brought forward again. So that's it. I mean, it goes back to point one of structured learning. Focus sessions are part of the learning model. They're part of the application phase, which is so central to making things stick long term in your head. So reducing your tables, like you say, it's called a focus session because you focus and you really think about spots in detail and make sure that you don't become a zombie and ingrain bad habits that will just, are there to simplify the problem when it can't really be simplified because poker is too complex for that. So yeah, good idea. That's like my own idea. I'm just like flattering myself here, but well explained. That's the focus session. Yeah, I urge the audience to try it out. It definitely works well. Not every time, but maybe like one in 5 sessions you play, make it a focus session. It'll go a long way to help your game and reduce zombie mode. Final pitfall for today. There are about 1 billion more that people experience. We'll cover them later in later episodes. But what's number 5?
So I've got this as kind of like the psychological effects of moving up in stakes, and yeah, just kind of the way it like affects your play when you move up a level, basically.
We've all been there, right? Like you take a shot at the stake above because things have been going well, and you just get crushed, and you feel like you're scared money, like you're not playing your normal game, you're not with it. Have you experienced this yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've kind of like bounced up and down stakes, several times over the last couple of years. I think I started at 5 and I kind of did fine there, and then I got to 10, 16, 25, and now I'm back down at kind of halfway between 16 and 10 again. So yeah, I've had plenty of experience bouncing up and down stakes.
Yeah.
And yeah, some odd stuff can go on in your head when you move up to a new stake. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can kind of play like really meekly, like you said, scared money. You can just like fold way too much, or something like that, kind of just really meek. Or it can go the other way as well. You can just think, oh well, everyone's more aggressive at this stake, so I'm going to need to up my aggression to match as well.
Yeah, it's like I have to play back at them every single turn because they're playing back at me. Therefore, I can't be like the little fish in the big pond, right? That's the fear. You don't want to be like the little fish. You have to avoid small dog syndrome, as I call it, when you move up, where you feel like the small dog. And so you start like yapping in everyone's face. No one's actually afraid of the small dog. Most people just want to stand on the small dog's head, in my experience. I hate small dogs. I like big dogs, but yeah. You have to avoid that for sure. So if you're moving up, like first, there's 2 parts to this, right? Because there's like when is it actually right to move up in the first place? And then there's what should you do when you do move up. So let's take this in 2 parts. Part 1, how do you decide if you're ready to move up?
Kind of quite a big decision, I think. So depends on a lot of things. I mean, it depends predominantly on bankroll. It doesn't. I don't think it matters. Like if you think that you're going to crush the next stake, if you're not rolled for it, then there's really you can't be doing that. And also you've got to really like consider whether you're at the kind of the right skill level at the moment. Like you built up a nice roll at the lower stake, but are you actually going to be able to have a positive win rate at the higher stake? Because if not, you might be wasting your time.
And let's talk a bit more about that. So say you've got like a 2 big blind win rate at 10NL over a long sample, it's like reliable. Should you move up to 25NL with that win rate at 10?
That's quite a big jump. I mean, no, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, you should probably be crushing 10 more than that before you move to 25.
Definitely, because like 2 big blind per 100 win rate is really nothing at all. I mean, it's you're so subject to variance when that is your win rate, and what you want to do is when you move up, you don't want to be entering like a hailstorm of variance, because it's like if you play a game like blackjack, for instance, like the casino has a very small edge in blackjack. And because of that, it goes through enormous swings. Like some nights it gets totally crushed at blackjack by its players who are playing well, and some nights it will crush them. And the variance in that is just enormous because the edge is so small. So when you're winning at 2BB per 100, you're like the casino offering blackjack to skilled blackjack players. You're beating them perhaps if they're not like card counting or whatever, but not very well. And you have to be rolled. That's why casinos have enormous bankrolls. So if you're not comfortable having an enormous bankroll of like 200 buy-ins for the stake you're playing, don't move up with a tiny win rate, because you're putting yourself in that unsound situation, both technically and mentally, because it's going to affect your mental game as well. So yeah, those are good requirements, definitely necessary, not sufficient requirements as to when you should move up in stakes. When you do move up, things change and you start to feel a bit unsettled. Should you change your game too much when you move up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you should be kind of vigilant and see, if people are playing differently, but like don't overreact, and definitely start by playing the solid game that was winning for you at the lower stake.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to like start changing things and like getting into unfamiliar territory. Once you leave your solid framework, you're just doing things you don't understand, and you're getting lost, and yeah, you quickly get yourself into like a big mess and a muddle. So definitely good to stay within that solid framework that was working at the lower stake. Sure, add parts in gradually, but don't try and do everything at once. Don't try and change dramatically, for sure. All right, man. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's been enlightening, I'm sure. Hopefully the audience can avoid those 5 pitfalls, and we'll have you back on in a few weeks' time or whatever, and do some more good stuff on this. So, as for you guys, please get in touch if you've got any feedback, comments, questions about the Carrot Poker podcast or about me and my coaching services. You can see on screen on YouTube there the information, if you're listening on iTunes. Email me at admin@carrotcorner.com. Love to hear from you guys. Or check out my site at www.carrotcorner.com. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now, and good luck at the tables.